So International Education Week is a joint initiative between the U.S. Department of Education and the U.S. Department of State. So essentially, it celebrates the benefits of international education and cultural exchange all over the world. There are over 80 countries in the world that celebrate International Education Week. So this is not the only school that does this. And it was first observed in 2000. And so it always occurs in the third week of November. Sometimes the dates are always changing because every year the calendar changes. And so, but it's essentially always in the third week of November. So thank you for joining. And we're going to talk a little bit about all of our programs. And I'm going to show you guys a quick video in the next few slides. Next slide, please. I am a returned Peace Corps volunteer, so I'm a recruiter. I served in the Peace Corps from 2017 to 2019 in the sector of community economic development, which is our business sector. From 2017 to 2019. The language I learned while I was in service is called Tetum, so it's a mixture of some Portuguese words, also borrowed from words from Bahasa, which is spoken in Indonesia. And I was recruited out of my undergraduate program when I was studying at the University of Hawaii. And so hopefully if you're considering Peace Corps, the State Department, you're learning about it just like I did in undergraduate school. Next slide. I'm going to show you a quick video, and then we'll jump back into the presentation. You get the
Are you looking for more in this world? Are you looking for more in this world?
technical difficulties, so we're just going to skip right into the presentation with and skip the video. So Peace Corps is a federal agency, and we focus on promoting world peace and friendship through these three strategic goals. The first one being to partner with people of interested countries and meeting their need for trained individuals. And so you've been invited to serve as a volunteer in host countries abroad. And then the second and third goal focuses on cross-cultural exchange, where as a volunteer, you're a representative of America. So you're sharing the cultural values, your traditions, our holidays with people in your host country. And then in the third strategic goal, you come back and share with your friends and family about your experience in service and everything that you've done as a volunteer while serving abroad. We have three different programs. We have the 2-year program, which is for U.S. citizens. You have to be 18 years old to meet the qualifications to apply. And the length of service is 27 months. So that includes 3 months of training plus 2 years of service. And then we have a Peace Corps response, which are shorter, high impact assignments for adults anywhere between the ages of, we have volunteers who serve between the ages of 18 to 80. And so there is no age limit. And so for Peace Corps response, there are shorter, high impact assignments for 6 to 12 months for individuals who are experienced professionals who have a background in a specific industry of work. And then we also have the virtual service pilot program, where you're donating anywhere between 5 to 15 hours a week, anywhere between 3 to 6 months. And so you're working and meeting online with your host country work partner to work on their prioritized projects for their organization. So these are the 3 service opportunities that we have. We also have some pilot programs also going on. So as an agency, we recognize there are barriers to service, and as we've also identified a few areas where that takes place and where we have challenges recruiting individuals who are interested in Peace Corps. And a lot of that comes down to sometimes the 2-year commitment. So right now we have a 15 service month pilot program. So you're doing 12 months of service plus 3 months of training. So instead of the 2 years, you'll be serving 15 months of service. Then we have increased readjustment allowance, which means volunteers are walking away with anywhere between $10,000 after they finish service. But with the increased readjustment allowance, they're walking away with $20,000 after service. And then we have the mid-service leave pilot, where volunteers are able to take leave during their service for 2 weeks, and we pay for your plane ticket back home and back from your country of service to your home of record. And we also provide travel funds for food and lodging if any of that is included in your travel plans. So those are the few pilots that we have for Peace Corps service. Volunteers are serving in one of these 6 different area concentrations. We have 6 different sectors. Agriculture, youth and development, education is our largest sector. We have the environment, health, and community economic development, which is our business sector. And then we have secondary projects that match your interest with the community need. It doesn't necessarily have to be a need or an interest right away, as long as as long as you're sharing something and doing something in your community that's a passion of yours, and maybe others might see that and then you want to learn more about it. And before you know it, you have a yoga class, a small English club that you're starting, a soccer club, basketball, many different activities, playing instruments, music. And so secondary projects can be many different things, but it can also be another sector of work. So you don't have to be a subject matter expert in any of these areas. For example, I served in community economic development, but my secondary projects were in education, health, and youth and development, just to give an example. We have volunteer positions all over the world. We have several different regions. We have the Intra-American Pacific region, which covers the Caribbean, Central and South America, and the Pacific Islands. And then we have Africa. And then we have the EMA region, which is Europe, Mediterranean, and Asia, and covers North Africa and the Middle East, Eastern Europe and Central Asia, and many different Asian countries, which includes Timor-Leste. Peace Corps has benefits during service. So volunteers receive a living stipend, a housing allowance. Your flight to and from the country is paid for by the agency. So those are your travel benefits. You also have medical coverage and dental coverage while you're in service. So there is a medical officer in every country that we have for Peace Corps volunteers, where they are taking care of all your medical needs. You do receive student loan assistance. And so if you are coming out of undergraduate school with federal student loans, you can have your loans deferred while you're in service. And also you receive career skills and training. So you receive language training and job training while you're in service, and community immersion training, which means you are so you're being educated on how to culturally integrate into your community in an appropriate way. So you're not accidentally offending someone, and you know how to do the correct and proper greetings. Correct and proper meetings when you are meeting elders versus respected people in your community, making sure you're doing proper greetings. We have security officers as well. And so if volunteers are ever a victim of a crime, they can always reach out to the security officer and go through the proper channels to report that. Volunteers are also briefed on the safety and security concerns of that country and how to navigate that. Volunteers know where the nearest police station is, and what to do in the event there is a disaster and where to report. And so there is support on ground for you as a volunteer. You don't just sign up to be a volunteer and we just throw you out there. There's a lot of things in place to make sure you're supported and to see you through to the end of your service. And then lastly, we have the TEFL certification. So teaching English as a foreign language. If you're interested in making a career out of living abroad or coming back and starting a second job or doing something on the side, teaching English as a foreign language is beneficial if you want to build a career out of it or have just a side job. Maybe you are deciding to go to graduate school and you want to earn some extra money on the side, but you can't really commit to a full part-time job or a full-time job while in graduate school. Well, if you earned your TEFL certification in the Peace Corps, you could build your own hours, build your own small business, and start teaching English as a foreign language to make extra money while you're going through graduate school. So just to kind of give you an example of how you can use some of these benefits. Benefits after service include transition funds, anywhere between $10,000 to $20,000. I mentioned professional skills. Volunteers also have access to our job portal. It's called the RPCV portal. RPCV stands for Returned Peace Corps Volunteer, and it's only for returned volunteers to use after they leave service. And so that's a benefit that you have. You have graduate school benefits. So if you're interested in going to graduate school and you're trying to figure out how you're going to get tuition paid, we have a partnership with over 200 universities across the U.S. that offer over 200 degree programs. So if you are interested in getting your graduate school benefits paid for, they offer anywhere between 50 to 100% of tuition assistance and other things that are included as well. We have federal employment advantages. So if you have thought about or have interest in working for the federal government, we have what's called non-competitive eligibility, which is a hiring pathway into the federal workforce. And I have taken a peek at a few of my colleagues' slides. And so they will talk a little bit more about some other hiring pathways you have into the federal government. I'm not going to mention those, but you actually have multiple hiring pathways in the federal workforce right now, even as a student. And they're actually going to be covering some of that material in their slides coming up later on. And then we have student loan assistance. And so one of the things that you can do is when you have federal loans, you can apply for public service loan forgiveness. So if you serve 10 years working in public service, it could be for the state, the county, the city, that counts towards canceling out your student loan debt, but you have to make sure you have done all the proper necessary documentation with the Department of Education. But just know that if that's a route you want to go to tackle your student loans, your 2 years in Peace Corps counts towards public service loan forgiveness. So instead of when you leave Peace Corps service, you'll have 8 years left to do. And so this is just something to think about if you're walking away with student loans. And then we also have additional service opportunities that I've mentioned. Volunteers can extend their service. So say, for example, you do the 15-month program, you can extend your service 2 years, or you can apply for Peace Corps response or do virtual service pilot after as well. Competitive applicants have a college degree or 5 years of professional experience. You have to have a professional resume. Any volunteer or travel experience makes you competitive applicant for Peace Corps service, and any second languages you speak. So that concludes the presentation. For the sake of time, I'm not going to show any more videos, but I just wanted to kind of give you a snapshot of hearing about volunteers in Mongolia. But nevertheless, you can find some of those videos online. So thank you for your time. My contact information is on the slide. Thank you.
Okay, I guess I'll take over. Hello, thank you, UC Santa Cruz, for having me today, and thank you for Brittany for organizing. I am Susan Wong. I am the diplomat in residence with the U.S. Department of State. My regions are covering Northern and Central California. Next slide, please. So for those who are interested or who complete Peace Corps duty and still have a taste for working overseas and serving for the U.S. government, we are a great entity. We have many of coworkers who were former Peace Corps alums. So we are looking for a group of talented individuals and talented and skilled. Main things is the fact that we do need a U.S. citizenship and also any academic discipline. So it doesn't matter if you're IR major or non-IR major. I was a bio major when I started the Foreign Service. So just if you're interested in serving overseas and working for the U.S. government, this is a great pathway. There's many entry ways in. Next slide, please. I'll concentrate a little bit more on what's available for student programs. We do have internships that are paid 10 weeks in Washington, D.C. Two major programs are the U.S. Foreign Service Internship Program, Student Internship Program, and the regular U.S. Student Internship Program. Main difference is the U.S. FSIP is for 2 summers and the U.S. SIP is for 1 summer. I think the next round for the SIP will be fall 2025, and those will open up, I think, later in a few months. The next round for the U.S. SIP, since it's summer internships, will be around next August of next year. There's also fellowships in terms of paid programs that allows that the U.S. Department of State will supplement graduate school tuitions for 2 years. In exchange, it will be between years of service between 3 to 5 years, and there's 4 different programs for that. We also have, for those who want to remain in where they are right now, it's also the non-paid virtual student federal service programs too. Next slide. I'm just going through this too. So the main 4 different fellowship programs, the one that's open for applications now is the Foreign Affairs IT Fellowship, looking at those who are in information technology, cybersecurity, and what was the other one? IT, sorry. And then the Clark Fellowship will open up in early 2025. And that one is a great program that enters as a specialist diplomatic security special agent. And that doesn't have much restrictions in terms of the graduate school programs. Next slide. So kind of broke it down depending on where your where your years of studies are in terms of just a quick way to think about what you want to do to start up. Virtual for the VSFS is always a great opportunity. researching more careers.state.gov on the various avenues way in is also a great resource of information. You can also reach out to me. My contact information will be at the end of my presentation. So you can always, and anyone in Northern and Central California can always reach out and ask questions. Next slide. The U.S. Foreign Service, one of the main ways of entry is we go through as generalists, the Foreign Service Officer Test. One of the major requirements is being a U.S. citizen between age and 20 to 59 by the time one starts with the opportunities. And again, for U.S. Foreign Service specialists, there's also additional criteria and requirements, but because we're hiring specialists based on the specialized skill sets. For example, IT, HR, medical officers. Next slide. And times to apply for the specialist route, it's always through a vacancy announcements, and those are announced depending on the timing of the year. Several of these positions announcements are throughout 365 days. The Foreign Services Officers Test, there are 3 times in the year where the registration will start and open. The next round is February 2025. You go through Pearson VUE, which is the third-party administrator of the Foreign Service Officers Test. That way you can start registering by December 16th to select for February dates. And again, for the Foreign Service Officer test, you just take it 1 time per year. And then again, it's just the experience of taking the test for those who are interested. Next slide. And again, this is my contact information. If you're curious about the photo, you can play "Where's Susan?" and try to figure out. The hint is the orange gloves. Again, I'm on LinkedIn, and this is my email address. If anyone has any additional questions, you can always reach out. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, everybody. And hi, Talia. I'm Karen Kolmowski, so not to confuse you, because Brittany was presenting from my computer because we were having sound issues on her computer. But I am going to talk a little bit about USAid today. Most people have never heard of the United States Agency for International Development, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the work we do, and then student and fellowship opportunities, as well as career opportunities. So a little bit about myself. I am a diplomat, and a diplomat represents the U.S. government overseas in the countries where we serve. Susan is also a diplomat with a different agency. She's with Department of State, and I'm with the United States Agency for International Development. We work very closely together when we're posted in countries around the world. I'm telling you about my background to just let you know that I don't have a very linear path to my career. I started out with a bachelor's degree in physiology from UC San Diego. I'm actually originally from Santa Cruz, and I now live in Capitola. I graduated from Santa Cruz High and then went down to San Diego. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I graduated with my degree in physiology. Everybody at UCSD with that degree went to med school or biotech industry. I did not want to do that. So what did I do? I joined the US Peace Corps. And before Brittany, but I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Sierra Leone, West Africa, a health volunteer. And that's what changed my life. That's where I fell in love with public health. And I learned about USAid for the first time. So I went halfway around the world to learn that the US government had this agency. And that's also where I really learned and became passionate about international development. So I returned to California following my Peace Corps experience and used the Coverdale Fellowship that Brittany mentioned, which is a program for returned Peace Corps volunteers, to help me get through grad school. And I ended up getting a master's in public health from San Diego State University. Then I worked for some local NGOs in San Diego and did some cross-border health projects with Tijuana, Mexico, and San Diego. Worked for local county governments, so the Santa Ana Healthcare Agency in Orange County, California, before I moved to the federal government. And with the federal government, I've lived and worked in 8 different countries. In addition to Sierra Leone, 4 other African countries, and then 3 Asian countries. Next slide. So USAID is the US government's international development and disaster response agency. Our funding does not allow us to work on any programs domestically in the United States. So we solely work internationally, which is why most people do not know us. We are working to advance U.S. national security and economic prosperity. Our goals are to reduce poverty, save lives, and promote democratic governance and systems around the globe to lead to more stable nations. So if we can get basic services in countries, get people access to healthcare, education, increase jobs, people won't feel the need to leave their countries and possibly be recruited into violent extremism. So our mission is to build a freer, more equitable, and more humane world. Next slide. We're really trying to work on the basic needs. USAid is also the first responder for the US government to any man-made or national disaster that happens globally. So if there is an earthquake in Nepal, USAid is on the ground coordinating across the US government to bring in emergency food, water, shelter, health services, and psychosocial support. We also move in after conflicts to help stabilize the countries and then work on long-term recovery. So we do have teams in Ukraine now, among other countries around the world. Next slide. We work in more than 100 countries around the world. So anything in blue on this map is where we have USAID offices and programs. We are always based in a US embassy. So that is always, we are always based in the capital city, working closely with our Department of State colleagues and other agencies represented in the country. We work under something called inclusive development, where we don't walk in and say, we're the experts, we're going to tell you how to work and what to do. We walk in, we listen to people, we broaden our partnerships, we really try to include diverse people and partners. We always work with the most marginalized populations to try to make development assistance more equitable. And we work with leaders at all levels, community members, to help identify the problems and then sit around the table and come up with solutions to to these complex development challenges. We have a few priorities under the Biden-Harris administration, and that is to respond to the global food insecurity crisis. So get food from farms to people's tables. We're working on addressing the climate crisis and landslides and coastal degradation and rising sea temperatures. We're promoting democracy, countering corruption, and protecting dignity, freedoms, and human rights, and then also working to strengthen global health security. We actually work in 29 different sectors. So these are just an example of a few of the sectors where we work, and you can go to that link there to get more information, see the sectors we work in, and the results that we've accomplished over the past year. I'm going to do a quick case study here now, just typical of the work that USAID does. And this is with a marginalized tribal population in southern India. And we started working with women in this tribal population. The women typically have a second or third grade education level. Most do not have access to school or healthcare. Most are illiterate. They do make handicrafts, and they wanted to improve their incomes. So we started working with them. They wanted to set up a business. We helped them, brought in technical assistance to develop a women's cooperative. The women's cooperative ended up having 8,000 members in it. And the way the cooperative was designed is that they would all earn equal pay for the work that they were doing. They made handicrafts from bamboo and banana fiber. And so in that upper left-hand corner, you see them on their banana field. We help them with farming practices, techniques to increase yields. Bamboo is one of the best sequesters of carbon. So if we can plant more bamboo, which is indigenous to this part of India, then it can help with the air pollution that's happening in India. India now has the worst air pollution in the world. 4 of their cities are always in the top 10. And so what you see the women here is harvesting their banana bark so they can use the banana bark to make products. The next picture shows a warehouse that we help them build where they can store the banana bark and dry it. And then the women are sorting the banana bark. The next slide, they used to make banana bark into rope by hand. So we brought source locally available technology that was easy to fix if it breaks down, but could speed up the rope making. And so here they're making ropes and you see the rope drying in the back. They used the rope to weave baskets. They had a quality assurance team, greenhouses that can get up to 1,000 degrees to get rid of any pests. In that next slide, they're shellacking their basket so that pests cannot permeate it. Then the middle slide has a few of their finished products. And the last slide is one of their baskets. And that basket I actually found in IKEA in Palo Alto. So one of the things that we did is we used to set up either these cooperatives like coffee cooperatives or hand making cooperatives and walk away. But what we realized is that women or families weren't getting out of poverty because they could only sell their goods to so many people in their local communities. So we taught these women how to negotiate globally. We helped them with their first deal, which was with IKEA. And these women sold over $2 million worth of products to IKEA 2 years ago. And they now have deals with Carrefour, which is a European brand, as well as Walmart. They're negotiating with Walmart. What this means, and the women have shared the profits across all 8,000 members. So what this means now, looking at the impact of this project, the women are no longer working 16-hour days and making $15 a month. They are now working 6-hour days and making about $600 a month, which is more than the going rate in their communities. Their children are no longer staying home to help in the fields or to do household chores. Their kids are going to school and staying in school because they don't need to stay home because everybody has a bit more time. And the women are reinvesting in their community. So they're opening up childcare centers so other women can work outside of the home and have safe places for their kids. And then they are reinvesting into healthcare centers with qualified nurses for healthcare. And in this part of the world, gender-based violence is a huge issue. And so the women are investing in women-owned taxi companies with women drivers for women riders so that women can get to and from work safely. And so I use this as an example to just show sort of the typical work that USAID does. You may start something like this in Peace Corps at a little bit smaller level. And then with USAID, we have more resources, more technical assistance, more money to really expand it and bring it and make it globally so that we can help transform communities and go back to our goal, which is alleviate poverty and hopefully create better communities for people. And so they're healthier and able to live longer and work. Next slide. So I'm going to talk a little bit about careers now. Next slide. These are just placeholders. So if you wanted to join USAID's Foreign Service, Susan talked about an exam, the Foreign Service Officers Test, which is for State Department. For USAID, you would actually just apply for any one of these positions, and you can apply for as many of them as you feel you qualify for. We have 15 different career tracks into the Foreign Service. Some are pretty clear there that are very technical, like agriculture, environment, education, health. Crisis stabilization and government is our democracy and governance program. Legal are lawyers. We have lawyers who are foreign service officers. We have people who manage and issue all of our contracts and negotiate them. We have economists. We have engineers that work for us that are foreign service officers, and then people who manage our money and make all our payments, and people who manage all the internal operations, and then our strategy development people. So, and in this, we look for people from all different backgrounds that represent America. So we have a workforce that represents the United States, as well as the way of thinking. So we are truly looking for people from all different academic backgrounds to become foreign service officers, because a philosophy major is going to think very differently from an engineer or a chemist. And so the way we analyze and look at problem solving, if we have diverse views around the table, hopefully we're coming up with more solutions to really tackle these complex development issues nations are facing. Next slide. Next slide. So we have some internship programs that are available to students. Susan mentioned the Pathways internship program. That is a student internship program for full-time students. All of our internships are paid, and the majority of our internships are remote. So you can be living here in Santa Cruz or wherever you're from and work for us. We have offer summer and fall and spring internships. Our internships are designed for a semester system. So if you were to get in our spring internship, it would encompass both winter and spring quarter. They're part-time during the school year, so you can work remotely and go to classes and work part-time. And during the summer, they're full-time, 40-hour work weeks. We will be announcing our summer internships on USAidjobs.gov, which is the same place Susan mentioned. That's where all federal government agencies mention their internships. And we will be announcing our summer internships in early December, in a week or so. I really encourage you, Susan had on her slide, to go to USAidjobs.gov, set up an account, and get email alerts to anytime we post a new position, you would get an email alert saying it's announced. As soon as we announce our internships, you have to apply in the first day. Our internships are announced for 2 weeks or until we receive 250 applications. When we announced our spring, When we announced our spring internships, we received 250 applications in 24 hours. And so the site shuts down and stops accepting. So the hardest part is getting your resume in on time, because we offer at least 100 to 150 internships. So if there's 200 students applying, there's a good chance you'd get one. Next slide. If you want to go to graduate school, we do have a fellowship program similar to the Pickering and Wrangell that Susan mentioned. In our fellowship program, we pay for tuition of a graduate school of your choice. We also give $18,000 a year in a stipend for living expenses while you're in grad school. And you do a couple internships on Capitol Hill and within a USAid office. And when you graduate, you would become a foreign service officer with USAid. And that's the Donald Payne Fellowship Program. Those applications are always due towards the end of October. So you would have to wait till next October to apply for the fall of 2025. No, 6. Next slide. Okay, I am just ending with this slide. There is my QR code to book appointments. I do one-on-one student consultations, answer questions. My email address is there. I also answer questions by email. My LinkedIn is there, and you can send me messages on LinkedIn. I post our internships or whatever when it's available on LinkedIn. And then that photo at the end, right there with the Dalai Lama. I just like to end with that, saying that a career in international development and the Foreign Service, and Susan, well, and Brittany, with all of our experiences internationally, we've all had super rewarding experiences. And this, I think, was one of my highlights, is getting to spend an hour with the Dalai Lama before I left India, which was my last posting. So a year ago, I got to spend an hour with the Dalai Lama talking about the work we're doing with the Tibetan refugee in exile. Their government in exile is based in northern India, and we're working to strengthen their government system as well as preserve their culture. And then, of course, we talked about world peace. But the Foreign Service really provides a lot of incredible opportunities that I never imagined that I could have encountered, or the experiences I've had and the people I've learned and the cultures and just the sites I've seen have been super rewarding. So if you want to make a difference in the world and want to hopefully make the world a better and more positive place, then consider joining any three of our agencies. And next slide. If you want to stay connected with USAid, you can scan this QR code and get on our mailing list. And you just put in your email address, pick student and your name. And my colleague Angela, when we're about to the day before we announce our internships, she will send out a notice saying internship applications will go live tomorrow with the link to apply. They also do webinars on developing resumes for the federal government, mock interviews, various different things. So if you want to get on that, that's the QR code to get an early heads up when we announce our internships. And that's it. So thank you very much. And I think we're open for questions now to any Peace Corps, State Department, or USAid.